In this presentation, we will generate, analyze, print, and export to Excel a budgeted profit and loss, a budget overview, as well as a budget versus actual report within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars file. Last time we entered budgeted data, we did so by going to the cog up top, going to the tools, and going to the budgeting tab, and we entered our budget here. This is the budget. If we were to look at that edited data, here's the data input screen. Now we're going to take that information and create reports from it. We're going to close this back out. To do that, we're going to go to the reports on the left side, and we're going to start off with the budget overview report. I typically just search for the budgeted reports. There's two main reports. So if you start to type in budget, you'll get a budget overview and the budget versus actual. So the budget overview will give you just basically the budget, a comparative budget out into the future. The budget versus actual will give us, of course, a comparison of the budget compared to what actually happened. So that means that the overview is something that we would typically do before the time has passed. We made the budget. We want to think about what the budget will look like in the future. The budget versus actual then, of course, will mean that we had already budgeted, then the time had passed, meaning now we have actual data that we've input into the system and therefore want to do a comparison between what we planned to happen and what actually did happen. We'll start off with the overview data, and that's going to be our typical budget report thinking about the plan into the future. Here we have the reports. The current dates are the year of 2019, January through December 31st, 2019, the budgeted year. That's the input that we have input into the system. You can see that we have January all the way over through December. So we have the January through December and then the totals for the year. So if we scroll down, we of course have basically an income statement by month. However, it's an income statement that is projected into the future, as opposed to an income statement that is reflecting past data we've entered into the system. So we have our income, our cost of goods sold, our expenses, and our net income. And this is a way, of course, we can plan into the future and think about what it is that we're going to do in terms of performance. So if we scroll through here, we can see that the performance on the expenses remain much the same the way we entered the data, but revenue is increasing and therefore our income is going up. Net income goes up from month to month. Losses in the first couple time periods, and then towards the end we actually end up with revenue of the 35,240, or this is not revenue, this is bottom line income, this is net income, the 35,241. Now let's say we had an issue with some of these numbers. We go back in and we review some of these numbers and say we want to change like the bank charges from 120 to say $30 or something like that. If we wanted to do that, there's a couple ways that we can get there. We could go back up to the cog up top and we can go down to the budget once again and enter the data there, or we can simply click on that 120 and that'll take us to the data input screen, which was in essence this budget. And then we want to edit the budget. So if we edit the budget and then scroll down to find that 120, there it is for the bank service charge, change that to 30 and then copy it across. Now we've got the 360. If we save that then and close this back out, we'll have to reopen the report, however. So we'll go back to reports. We'll go to the budget and open up the budget overview report. And that's how we can basically adjust and change these numbers as we need. We can jump back and forth from the budget and make adjustments as needed. Change the dates up top and customize the report. We're going to change the date for the first quarter, January through March. So we're going to say January, February, March, January through 03/31/19 is what we're going to run as the report. Let's go ahead and run that report. And now we see January, February, and March and the total for the quarter in terms of our budgeted overview. We're going to go ahead and save this report and print this report. We're going to first customize it, however. So we're going to customize up top. We're going to do our standard customization. We're going to take the header and footer. We're going to remove the date prepared and time prepared. We are also going to make the recents go away, make it negative numbers, bracketed numbers for negative numbers, and show in red. Then we'll run that report. So there we have it. We have the standard report that we have seen in the format, or at least the formatting that we've seen or been working with. And now we're going to export this report to Excel. We'll group these reports in Excel and then compile them to one worksheet and then create a PDF format for it. So for presentation. So we're going to say export to Excel, and then we're going to save that on the desktop. It's going to go on the desktop. Notice I'm using a different browser, Brave browser, so the download option might be a little bit different than other browsers like Chrome or Firefox or whatever it is that we are using, but we are going to download it, and then we're going to set it into a new section. I'm going to create a new section, right-clicking and making a new folder, and we're going to call it section 11. And then in section 11, we're going to select that item, and we're going to put this report, and we're going to call this report a budget overview, and I'm just going to say 2019 and save that report. So now we're going to create another report. I'll close this back out and we'll create another report now, and I'm going to do that by right-clicking up top, and we're going to duplicate this tab. And then I'll pull the tab from the left to the right so that we have the overview on the left. We're going to create the other budget now on the right by going to the reports on the left side. We'll type in budget once again in the search field, but this time we want the budget versus actual. So now we have a long report. We've got the actual data. Here's January, February. We've got the actual data, the budgeted data, and then the difference between the two and the percent of budget information. So now we're comparing actual versus the budget. And we'll do that basically through every month. However, we have no actual for anything after February. We've entered data, actual data for the months of January and February. Therefore, anything after that, we don't have any data for the actual column. So what we want to do then, of course, is just look at the data for January and February. We'll change the date up top from January 1st to February 02, 2819. And then we're going to run that report. And now we have our two periods that we have actual data for and the total period. So we have January, actual, the budget, the difference between the two. In other words, this is what we thought was going to happen. This is what actually happened. There's the difference between the two. And here is the percentage change. Or this is the percent of budget, not the percent change. So we're going to take that number. If you want to calculate that number, we're going to say that the actual is 508. And compare that to what the budget was, in this case, divided by 2500. And if we move the decimal over, it's 20.2%. And that's going to be the percent of the budget. So in other words, from a percentage basis, we had 20.35% of service as compared to what we budgeted to have for that time period. And if we scroll down, we could see that comparison all the way down. Note that these numbers are mainly just used for comparison information. Also note that if we're in the first couple months of operation, then our budget and actual may not be very comparable, meaning we may not have had a good prediction of what will happen. But as time passes, we should get better and better at the budget, at the predictions of what the future will be. So if we scroll back up top, we see that for January, we see that for February, because once again, we entered the actual data. And then of course we have the total for that time period for January and February. So we're going to clean this up once again, and then we will export this to Excel as well. We're going to go back up top and do some of our customizations. So we're going to do the scrolling down to the header and footer. We'll remove the date, time, and report basis. Scrolling back up, we are going to then remove the pennies, negative numbers with brackets, and red. And then we will run that report. And so there we have it. So we have a bit more color here with the red numbers, and we'll go back up. That conforms with what we have been doing in the past. And now we'll go ahead and export this report to Excel. So we're going to go to Export to Excel. We're going to put this in the same place. It's going to be a budget versus actual and 2019. Budget versus actual 2019, and save that report. Here's where we put the two reports. Now we'll just take a look at them in Excel, make any adjustments we have to them, and we'll save them in such a way that we can then distribute them or give them to whoever we need to give them, whether it be supervisor, a course, for ourselves, later a client. We'll select the section 11. Here's our two reports. If we open up the overview report, here we have it. If we go back to the page layout, we can see it fits on one page. That looks good. So now let's go ahead and we're going to put these two reports on one Excel tab so that we can then give one document to someone, and then we'll also save it as a PDF file so that we can give it in just one PDF file. To do that this time, we're just going to save this one. We'll save this one first. We'll go to Save As, which will duplicate this file. So we'll go to the File tab up top, Save As, Browse, and then we're just going to save a duplicate copy now, but this one's going to be called Section 11. Section 11. So now we have that, and we just need to add the second report to it now. So now we'll add another tab, and then we'll go to the second report, which is going to be the budget versus actual. We'll open that one up. Let's see if it fits on a page. We're going to go to the Layout tab, and it doesn't. So now we'll go back up top and say, okay, let's go to the page layout. Let's make this orientation landscape. See if that helps. It doesn't quite make it. Let's go back to the normal view. It's really close, so you might want to just see if there's some way that we can manipulate this, possibly just making this a little bit shorter. And that cuts off something down here, possibly, but we'll see if we can make that a little bit shorter to see if we can make it work. There it is. So that's pretty close. So we're going to save it like that and say that looks good. And then we'll also copy this. So I'm going to say actually let's hit this triangle up top, right click on the selected area and copy. Go back to our prior worksheet. So back to the prior worksheet, paste it in A1 and paste it. And now we'll have to do that again. Let's go back to the prior worksheet, copy the budget versus actual, double clicking on it, Control C to copy. Back to our current worksheet, double click the sheet 1, Control V to paste. And now we'll have to adjust this again because we put it on another worksheet. So we're going to go to the page layout. We know it's doable. And let's go to the page layout tab. It's on 2 tabs, orientation in the page layout group, landscape. So that looks good. Back to the normal tab. And so now we have 2 on 1 tab, on 1 Excel workbook. So let's save this. And now let's print it as a PDF file on 1 file. So we're going to go to the File, Print. We're going to use the Qt PDF printer to save it as a PDF file. We're going to change it from just one sheet to not just the active sheet, but the entire workbook. And now we can have the 2 sheets that will print out on 1 PDF file. We'll go ahead and do that. We're going to print that. We're going to save it to the same location. So I'm going to select the drop down. I want to go to GGG and Section 11. So it's going to be called Section 11 and save that. And then if we check that out, we're going to go back to our reports. There it is, Section 11. Open that back up, and this will be our information. So if we scroll down, we're going to say, yeah, that looks good. And here's the second side that's on landscape. It all fits on a page that at least 1 page wide. We may want to adjust it to get this 1 line up on the other page as well, but at least we don't have to tape anything together. So that's good. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.